All right, so welcome to Closers or Losers, another episode today. I'm here with our CEO, Matt Ryder, and I am the chairman of Seventh Level. So welcome to the show. So we're a company that helps sales professionals like you, coaches, sales executives, business owners, and we help you transform the way you and your team, your company sells by learning skills that work with human behavior, okay, rather than against it. Now, we call those neuro-emotional persuasion questions. Like, what are those questions? And then the right tonality, which we're going to talk about today, the right delivery that puts your prospects at ease, eliminates sales pressure, and gets your prospects to persuade themselves. So Matt, welcome. How are you, man? How's Sydney?
It's good. It's good. So getting there. The new 7th Level HQ is almost set up. So
7th Level HQ set up, and I'm not even there, man. I live in America, and I probably won't even see that office for 6 months. Yeah, I don't think you guys let anybody in your country?
No.
You guys are
no
like
in, no out.
Communist country now. What's going on out there?
Exactly. I don't even know. But I like the aggressive salmon on your shirt. Looks good.
You like the? Oh, dude, this is awesome.
It's an aggressive salmon.
I know. My wife picks out these nice salmon color. You know, she tries to get me to wear the salmon color shoes, but I'm just not going that far. Some people would say I'm a what do they call metrosexual person, where you dress really nice. I'm not that deep into it. Like, you know, I can't go too deep, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, we'll keep you on the straight and narrow.
We'll keep you on the straight and narrow. So today I want to go over tonality. I want to go over body language. If I cut in and out, we're traveling as well. So we're out in Arizona for the next couple of weeks. So if I cut in and out, let me know and I'll try to jump back on. Internet, pretty good here, but not like the office. All right. So, you know, when I'm training salespeople, one of the biggest things that I feel that it takes most salespeople the longest to master is their tone. You know, not just the questions, like we can teach them all the questions in the world, but how are they asking the questions? Because one thing we all have to realize, and I want to get your comments on this, is that when we first call a prospect, whether that's an inbound lead, whether it's an outbound lead, whether it's a cold call, whether it's in person, whether it's B2C, B2B, doesn't matter. Your prospect is picking up on verbal and nonverbal cues based on your tonality and based on what you are saying and asking that triggers them to respond in one of two ways. If you don't know how to use your tone the right way and deliver your questions, it's going to trigger sales resistance and it's going to trigger objections very quickly. Now, if you do know the right questions to ask and how to pause and how to deliver that, it triggers their brain to become so curious that they feel like they have to engage, because if they don't engage, they could be missing something very important. What are your thoughts when you train salespeople? What are you seeing out there?
I think one of the most important things that people don't realize what tonality actually does, it allows you to quickly move people through the sales process, because you can accurately predict how they're going to answer based on how you ask a question. So people think that tonality is like, I don't know, like a trick, or like I don't think they understand the purpose of it. Like, they think it's to evoke emotion, and that is part of it. But really, it's to accurately dictate how the person answers the question using social cueing, inflections. Because if I ask a question, I think we've gone over this before, like, why is that important to you now, though? That's a very neutral, they can answer that in a couple of different ways. So I'm not a big fan of that, asking those types of questions in a very neutral manner, because I don't know where that answer can go and it can take me down a rabbit hole. But if I say, well, why is that important to you now, though? And I kind of run over the now, but emphasize that, then that means that they'll answer it in terms of the tangible, which we've just been speaking of, where I say, well, why is that important to you now, though? And they're going to answer that in terms of time and urgency, which then allows me to I dictate how they answer it. So if I'm more worried about the tangible at the top of a call, and then I know that at the bottom of a call, I'm more worried about urgency and timing, then I can ask those questions in different ways to get the answers that I require to push them through the process quickly and efficiently, and be able to accurately predict answers so I can control the whole scenario.
Yeah, 100%. And what Matt's talking about is an NEPQ probing question. So if they talk about why they're looking at possibly making a change, whatever you're selling, doesn't matter if it's B2C, B2B, and you simply ask them, well, okay, but why so important to you now though? See, like he said, we're emphasizing the word now, and that is about timing, about urgency. That's what we want. We want them to tell us, more importantly, them, why they feel like they have to change now. Because at the very end of that conversation, they're not going to then come back and say, well, I need to think about it. Maybe we'll do something in 6 months. Because that question you asked created urgency in their mind about why they feel like they have to do it now. But it's the way he said that. That's so important. Did you pick up on that? Everybody listening, if he said, but why is that important to you now? That has a completely different reaction. You're going to get a completely different reaction from your prospect than if you ask it in this tone. But hold on, why so important to you now though? Like I'm skeptical, like I'm questioning them. And when you're skeptical and you question them, they almost fight back, not in a bad way, but they view you as they're more like, well, it's important to me now because of this, and this. It's like they gravitate and they're like they're pull you in, like trying to convince you why it's so important for them to change now.
Yeah, you're challenging it. You're asking for detail. And so when you ask for detail on something, you're asking someone to defend their own position, and that entrenches them into ideas, which is very, very powerful.
Yeah, it entrenches them into their ideas. And what it does is it helps them take ownership of wanting to solve the problem. Whereas most salespeople don't know the questions to ask that get that prospect to take ownership of the problem and want to do something. The salesperson has more ownership of it and tells the prospect why they should do something, which goes in one ear out the other because it's just the salesperson's opinion. It's just their agenda. But if you ask them that question and they tell themselves why they feel like they have to do something, they now own the problem and they own wanting to do something about it. And it's a massive difference in your company sales when your salespeople do it that way.
Yeah, getting people to defend their own positions is a key part of a sales process because you have to get them to do it multiple times throughout it. One of the examples I always give whenever we're teaching this is I use an extreme. I go, let's talk about like someone who's really racist. I was like, if you just tell that person to shut up and you never speak to them about it, then like their ideas will just fulminate in their own head. But if you ask for a lot of detail and you really question the person, that really shitty idea, it falls apart pretty quickly. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like bad ideas will fall apart with detail. So if someone is saying something that's very counter to what you want at the end of the call, and then it's a fundamentally bad idea, then you can just ask for detail and you can do that skillfully to where it kind of crumbles. And then if someone has a really good idea, then you can ask the same. So like, oh, like, what did you mean by that? Okay, and how long has that been going for? And what kind of impact is that having? And so you're asking for all these details about it, which then just cements the idea further and further and further. And because they're saying it, it becomes gospel. Anything I say is garbage. Anything the prospect says is gospel in like in their own mind. And that's one of the strategies that really helped me as a salesperson get better, because I realized like, I can't convince anyone of anything. All I can do is take them down a pathway where they can convince themselves.
Well, it's you're avoiding the push-pull dynamic that most salespeople find themselves in. And it's because it's not their fault. It's just that's how they were trained, right? They were just trained, regurgitated, traditional sales training that works against human behavior, especially in our time. You realize your prospects are far more skeptical, far more cautious than they've ever been before. Just the power of technology, social media has caused that skepticism, caused that cautiousness. So the more you act like a salesperson that's just there trying to tell them why they should do it, the more that they just throw you off to the side. I want to think about it. Your price is too high. We don't need it. I can't afford it. We don't have the budget. Let me speak to my business partner. We'll get back to you later. Can you send us a quote? And they just control the whole sale. You don't want to ever be in that situation, because it's like it's like the drug we always talk about that so many salespeople and companies are on. We call it hopium, where they just hope and pray, hope and pray that something they're going to say is going to magically trigger the prospect to just want to buy from them. And it's such a hard an unpredictable way to make a living as a salesperson. And if you own the business, it's an unpredictable way to scale your business if your sales are up and down and, down and up and just all over the place. It has to be this way with your sales force.
Yeah.
You have to learn advanced skills.
I think one of the important things to talk about in tonality is how the overuse of it is. I find when people are learning this stuff, the most common thing that happens is either it's just terrible and they avoid it, or they kind of try and tonify every single sentence that they say. And so what they end up doing is if you're constantly talking with inflection and pausing, and stuttering is a powerful tonal, I don't know if I guess you'd put it in that kind of realm, but stuttering is a very intentional stuttering is very powerful because it changes the dynamic of how you ask something. Yeah. And it really does massively. It creates a lot of engagement because people are, it takes the script out of the whole thing. No one thinks you're on script if you're going, okay, but what did you mean when you said, you know what I mean? So all that kind of stuff. But
you knew the question you were going to ask. You had it memorized, but you didn't act like you were scripted.
Yeah. Exactly. Which then that's how you know a really polished script when it sounds completely unscripted. And so I think a lot of the guys that I see, especially in some of our inner circle or NEPQ 3.0, or even some of the stuff that we do for the NEPQ 2.0 guys, is that they will try and emulate you, right? Which is difficult because that's 20, 25, maybe even 50 years of sales.
I'm not that old, dude. I'm 40, man.
50 years of sales experience. Been door knocking for 50 years. Started when he was 32.
I was selling before I was selling before my body was in my mother's womb. Apparently, I was selling up there in heaven somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I try and teach is okay, so you need to come at a sales from a general neutral tonality. You don't want to be, hey, how are you? This is Matt from 7-Eleven. I just really want to talk to you. That's terrible. You're not the wacky arm waving inflatable tube man of sales, right? So generally neutral tonality. And then from there, you pick the points where you want to have emphasis. And those are the parts where you work on the tone, and then they'll have impact. Because if you're always doing something, it's never impactful.
Well, it's just, we talk about this so much, in our group training, especially with the inner circle members, we talk about, we're going to write out your sales structure with, you're going to tie an NEPQ to what you sell, but it's the delivery of that. It's you memorizing the questions. And when you're having that conversation, it's learning when to pause, when to, move your head up and think about what you're going to ask. It's just like if you're, a Hollywood actor. I mean, this is what Hollywood actors do. That's why they're famous in Hollywood compared to the people who never made it as actors. The difference is when they're in the movie, let's say you're watching a George Clooney movie or Brad Pitt or whoever is your favorite actor or actress. Okay. It doesn't matter who that is. I always tease my wife on the movies, the Marvel movies, Scarlett Johansson. I'm like, whoa, man, she's just great in her acting. She's like, what? Don't watch her. So let's say you're Scarlett Johansson or George Clooney. When you watch the movie, you don't think of them as George Clooney or Scarlett Johansson. You think of them as the character they're playing in that movie. And why do you think of them as that character? Because every line that they're saying is 100% scripted. It was in their script, but they don't sound scripted. It sounds completely like they are who they say they are in that movie. It doesn't sound scripted. It doesn't sound rehearsed. It sounds like that's who they are. One thing I read a book by Leo, what's his name? Leonardo, the guy on Titanic. I'm talking
DiCaprio.
Yeah, DiCaprio, right? So I read one of his books, and he talks about how he prepares. And I'm telling you, the reason why he's a mad genius and the reason why he's won so many awards and he gets paid so much money is he actually becomes the character he's playing in that movie in his real life. And that's why a lot of Hollywood actors and actresses go through so many relationships, because they're not the real person. They play different people compared to what movie they're in. So let's say if he's playing Batman, he starts to think like Batman does while he's at his home, while he's driving around, he's thinking about the character he's going to play in that movie. He's not the real person. And that's why a lot of them have problems in their relationships, because they're never really there. They're always acting like the character they're playing. And as a sales professional, you have to memorize your lines. You have to memorize your questions, but they can't sound rehearsed. If you're like, let's say if you're selling like Amazon coaching, I'm just throwing something out there. First situation question you might ask. So what do you do for a living, John? You know, that sounds rehearsed. But if I said, okay, so what do you do for work? Or like, what do you do for a living now? Well, that's a memorized question, but it doesn't sound scripted. It sounds natural. Like it's a natural conversation. And that opens your prospects up, whether you're selling B2B, whether you're selling B2C, talking to a business owner, talking to a CEO, or talking to mom and Joe Pop who want to get an extra life insurance policy. If you're selling insurance, it doesn't matter. It's all the delivery of those questions.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you hear people try and like when they're first starting out, do the tonality, because it actually, like, I always tell people, it's like, hey, like, you've been curious in your life. Everyone knows how to sound curious. Everyone knows how to sound intentful. Everyone knows how to sound confident, sheepish, scared. We all know how to sound this way because we do it when it's real. It's just like, you have to then study and think about, like, if you want to ask a question with genuine curiosity, like, first of all, it really helps if you're genuinely curious about the answer.
Yeah.
Like that really helps. There's a great, the play Hamilton. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the original one, it's on Disney Plus now. So where the guy who wrote it is playing Hamilton, right? So, and he was like the best Hamilton. But his, like, I watched it, his use of tonality and like his ability to evoke emotion through the slightest vocal changes is on a different planet. Like, I was like, holy crap. So I actually told a few of our sales reps, I was like, I need you to go watch like these areas of Hamilton. And I was like, I want you to see if you can tell what he's doing and how he's doing it. And then I want you to practice that. And it's like just the small changes in body language, right, that then come out through your voice. Like, you want to sound, you want to kind of like defeat yourself a little bit. You put your shoulders forward, all of a sudden, like, your voice is a little bit different. So if you can practice these things, then you can turn them into things that you can recall whenever you want. And so it's like, what's the first thing you do when you get a dog? You name the dog. What's the second thing you do when you get a dog? You teach it to come when you call its name, right? So you get a skill, you name the skill, and then you can recall the skill when you need it.
Yeah, no, it's so true. You talk about Hamilton. Well, I would say, because I watch a lot of people speak on YouTube. I watch a lot of people speak on, TV, if I remember watching TV. So like, I don't really get into politics. I'm just not a political person. I'm kind of in the middle. I think everybody's crazy, but from both parties. But one of the best presidents that we've had in the United States anyways, as far as like speaking, I'm not saying, everybody can debate the policy. I don't really get into that, but I'm talking about as a communicator. So if you're listening and you hate this guy, don't hate anybody. Just
you relax. Can say a name. Who cares? I don't care what anyone thinks.
Yeah, just relax. Whether it's Trump,
was it Obama? Obama was a brilliant speaker.
Yeah, whether it's Obama, Trump, it doesn't matter. We're talking about communication now. So don't get your panties in a wad if you don't like the guy. We're talking about communication. But one of the best communicators, the best orators, the best person about communicating their ideas in public was President Obama. Okay.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
The way he spoke, and especially when he wanted to emphasize something, he was great at verbal pausing. Verbal pausing. He could get a point across and then just stop for like 3 to 5 seconds, stare off into the crowd. And what does that make everybody do? Pay attention. Now, one president who was not that great at communicating was President Trump. Now, you might say he's great at other things. Every president's great at some things and bad at other things, just the way it is. Nobody's perfect. But he wasn't a great communicator, right? And he might have a good idea, but the way he communicated it triggered certain people to like hate it, even though if they knew the idea, they might like it. But the way he communicated it, because he didn't know how to verbal pause, he didn't have the right tonality in pausing, it triggered a certain reaction in people he was talking to. Okay.
Well, I think if you say everything the same way, then everyone assumes that you think about everything in the same way. Right. And so that's why verbal pausing and like slight stuttering and like one of the things that I think if we're gonna go with Obama did very, very well was the pause and then run over. So he would go huh, like that, like really, he would like go, and that's and then talk really quickly, and then that sort of like, oh, I was supposed to put the importance on that thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm running over that. And it's like being able to do that. Obviously, it's very intentional. Yeah. People think it's not. It's highly intentional. Like, like it's, yeah, because that's, you can dictate how someone interprets anything by the way that you say it. Like people think, oh, I've been misinterpreted. It's like, oh, well, that's your fault for not being easily, like for not being easy to interpret. Like, you know, like, because you really care. And I've learned with sales, especially working with you over the last 12 months, is that like you can really, especially in a one-on-one, especially in that, because you can read the person really well, is that you can, like, honestly, with a high degree of accuracy, dictate exactly how that person will answer a question just based off like how you ask it. And that is such an important tool. I get asked all the time, like, you know, this, you know, all these sales questions. It's like, you just have to control the whole process without them thinking you're in control of the whole process. Like that's the key to good selling. And that's not like a subterfuge tech. That's just like me as a salesperson. I have a desired outcome. I don't want to use any tricks. I don't want to trick people into anything. I only want to sell good quality products and services to people who need them. And we weed the people out who can't benefit from early in the process. So the only people that we're talking to are people who can benefit from it anyway. And so then it's about like, I, as a salesperson, it's my job. I need to have the most efficient means available to get them from A to B, right? And so I want to be able to control the process, because if I can't, like, what am I doing? I hear a lot of salespeople, and this is you at home, like the sales process is happening to you. Yeah. Like you're not controlling it. Like I was coaching one of our guys the other day, and I said, like, a good sales process, the prospect's on a water slide. They're having fun, but there's only one way that it's going to go. Like
only going down that slide.
That's it, man. Like that's the only way it's going. And that's why, like, you know, me and you and Marco and some of our team, like we closed at exceptional rates that we don't discuss publicly because nobody would believe them. There's just no point. You know, I think Marco went like 6 weeks without a no. You know, and this is like, it's just stupid.
We're talking high-end training products. We're not talking magazine subscriptions for $10.
But this is also selling to, you know, 50 million euro companies. You know, like one of the guys that me and him sold together was great company. They're a German textiles factory. So this is Germans who sell like very particular type of people, right? And in a very, very classical B2B environment. And then him closing at 100% on that, and then going to closing at 100% of people who just want individual sales training. And then, you know, people who want more coaching and people who want, you know what I mean? So many different types of selling, but using the same framework. And, you know, one of the things that he's done really well, because English is a second language and he was never formally taught English. He learned English from watching Friends, I think it was. No, from watching Chappelle Show. That's where he learned English, which is terrifying, right?
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So like he's had to use his ability to like convey what he means through his body language and through his tone, because sometimes what he says makes no sense, but you understand it because of how he said it and the context that he said it in. And it's like, it just works. And he's selling people, and, you know, it just works because like he's a pure tonality seller. It's bizarre.
It's so true. Like he'll be talking to me in Voxer and I'm like, dude, I don't understand what you mean. Like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, how is he selling like such a high level companies and people? But it's because he's, like I said, he's positioned himself as an expert because of the questions he asks and how he's asking them. They might not understand. Maybe there's one question they just don't quite understand, but they get it because of his tone, the way he's delivered in his body language, right? It makes sense, so they know what he's talking about. I think I couldn't imagine, like, if my first language is, let's say, what's his first language? Is it
Italian?
Yeah, it's just Italian. So like, I couldn't imagine if my first language was English and I barely knew, and I knew some Italian, and I'm on Zoom with an Italian company talking to them and they're asking me questions and I have to process what that even means because I don't understand the words, and then somehow ask a question. I don't even know how he does it. That's just a remarkable skill.
Yeah. Te quieres? Yeah. Yeah. Like I speak Spanish. I think you do as well, right? You speak Spanish? Un poquito. Yeah. Yeah. I used to be 100% fluent. I haven't spoken it for a while, but I still understand it very well. But if I was asked to sell in Spanish, I would be like, oh no.
I would be over.
I've had to do it once. And it was difficult. I understood everything, but conveying it was difficult. Anyway,
yeah, I'd be a goner if I was trying to sell in a different language for sure.
Yeah,
I have a hard time.
So, are there any kind of like final, I guess, like just little tips, tricks, or even a pitfall to avoid for people who want to kind of, I guess, start introducing more tonality cues within their sales process so they can have more control?
The biggest tip you can do is take your questions. Okay, so especially if you're in our training and you understand connecting questions and situation and problem awareness and all the way down to committing questions, everything that we train our salespeople that take our courses and companies. If you understand that process, you have to memorize the questions. It's so important. Okay, I don't care if you're on Zoom and you're just selling straight Zoom to Zoom now because of the coronavirus or whatever. I don't care if those questions are plastered up against the wall and you can look at them while you're asking. I want you to memorize. You have to memorize those questions if you want to sound natural. You can't just look at your sheet, right, and be like, okay, I know what. No, it sounds rehearsed, it sounds memorized. So especially if you're B2B and you're in a boardroom meeting, or you're door to door and you don't have the questions right in front of you. You're not in your office. You really have to memorize the questions and you have to put in the time. Like when I first got into sales, when I was a 21-year-old little punk trying to figure it out, and that's kind of the start of where I developed NEPQ, is I had to memorize those questions. And I literally would get up an hour early every day. I'd get up about 5:30 in the morning because I had to be in my office around 9 or 10 to start the sales day. And I would spend an hour every day rehearsing and coming up with those questions and memorizing it. And I did that 7 days a week, every single month, every single year, like religiously. And that's why I became so fluent. It was just like riding a bike. It didn't matter. It's like riding a bike. I get up. My wife could hit me in the chest at 3 a.m. and be like, what's your third problem awareness question you're going to ask to an executive about this? Boom. I would know it right there. Boom. Just natural. Because if you don't sound natural, if you sound scripted and rehearsed, people don't open up. They feel like you're just trying to sell them and they close down. They just give you surface level answers. So it's all about memorizing the questions and rehearsing it like an actor does in Hollywood. There's a reason why Julia Roberts gets paid $30 million for a film. Well, because she puts in the most time. She rehearses and she practices and she perfects the role of the character she's playing. And as a salesperson, if you want to make the big bucks, if you want to make 2, 3, 4, 500,000 plus a year or more, you've got to put in the time to learn the craft and really rehearse it and study it.
Do you want to hear something funny? James is in a Facebook group. They're a sales placement agency, and it's called 7-figure sales something or other, right? That's like what the group's called. And the moderators of the group said, you can't make $1 million in commissions, right? Okay. And James goes, yeah, you can, right? And like the group's called 7-figure. Like, so I assume that means now I figure that they mean like closing 7 figures in contract in a year, which is like, man, that's a decent month. That's not a good year.
We have salespeople that close that much every month.
Yeah, but like this guy's like, it can't be done. And James goes, yeah, sure it can. He's like, my business partner did it. He goes, there's like, I work with like 5 guys who have done it. And they're like, no, it can't be done. And he's like, I know door knockers that make $100,000 a month in commissions. They're like, nah, what? Like, so like, you're not even going to prove it. Then they blocked him from the group. They said, you have to prove it, then blocked him from the group.
Yeah. I mean, we could send them testimonials to those people that we train and make 80 to 100 grand a month, even door knock.
Well, that same company who runs that Facebook group, they place salespeople into businesses and they tell the business owners, and I have this firsthand, that you tell us when your sales guy is about to make more than 75 grand a year in commissions, because we'll add more sales guys, because you don't want your sales guys making more than 75 grand a year, because then they're not hungry enough. And I was like, That's disgusting, first of all, that they're treating people like that, because that's not how they advertise the sales guys. But second of all, 75 grand as commissions. Like, I could work 3 hours a day. Not even. I could work an hour a day and make 75 grand a year in commissions. Yeah. I know it sounds arrogant, but 100%, that would be no dramas. Like, if I was,
it's your techniques. I mean, the way they're selling, they're probably not going to make any money because they don't know how to sell the right way, right? But I mean, we have hundreds of students that make
it's crazy.
30, 40, 50 grand plus every month. And that's spread across hundreds of different industries. That's not just like one industry. I mean, you're talking about
there's a guy that I'm getting on the podcast, really, really nice guy. We'll have a chat to him. He's in Inner Circle. Raj, I'm not sure if you know. He did 1.2 million pound in commissions last year.
Yeah, so that's like $1.6 million in US dollars.
Phenomenal sales guy, extremely nice guy, has non-for-profits, has charities, just bought a Bentley GT. Yeah. High five, Raj.
Yeah,
savage. I mean, total savage.
That's crazy if you're just holding your salespeople back, because number one, they're going to leave eventually because they're going to get tired of only making 75 grand a year. That's not very much money unless you live in like South Dakota here in the United States in a tent. That's not very much money. And no pun intended if you live in South Dakota. Okay, lots of great people there. However, you need to be making at least.
So political.
You want to make at least. If you're a sales professional and that's what you do full-time living, you want to learn the skills to make at least a couple $100,000 a year. You just do. And you can do that in any industry. Like, we literally have people that sell door to door that make 3, 4, 500,000 plus every year or higher, just door to door. I mean, we're not even talking about like crazy professional industries. Medical device sales. We've got insurance salespeople that make hundreds of thousands a year. Financial services, coaching companies, salespeople that sell coaching. It doesn't matter. Cars. We've got car salespeople that make more than $500,000 every year.
Which is crazy because the commissions on selling cars is terrible.
Are small, yeah.
It's terrible, like terrible. I bought a $200,000 car. The guy made like $1,000 commission. I spoke to him about it. To be fair, he was a garbage sales guy, and I'm glad he didn't make much money because he was terrible. Anyway, we should go. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. Make sure if you want to check out more about us and what we do, go to the Sales Revolution Facebook group. You'll be asked a couple of questions from there. We can sort of learn more about how to help you. There's some units and there's some stuff in there just to give you some free resources. And then if you want, our team can reach out to you and see if there's any possibility of us being able to help you with your sales, with your process, with your tonality, etc. Also, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit notification bell. If you're listening to this native on your phone, make sure you hit the subscription to let us know that you enjoy this, so we can kind of watch the numbers grow and let us know that we're actually helping people. Yeah, and if you want to, you can go to our website, which will be linked in the descriptions below, and troll around there and get some free resources if you want to.
Yeah, 100%. Matt and I go live in our Facebook group 4 to 5 times a week with different training, different content, lots of free resources, like you said there. And yeah, just hit us up, Sales Revolution. Matt, thanks for being on here. It's always an honor, and I'll see you next week.
Awesome. See you guys. Bye.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training, so be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're going to win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the Sales Revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.